before we had this saying around the 10x engineer, that 10x engineer is now like a 500x engineer. And clients in any product don't really care how you solve a problem. They don't care if you're solving it with AI or not AI. They care about who's solving the problem the best. Most of these startups still feel like point solutions and features rather than an entire product.
There seems to be two schools of thought in AI. One is kind of the doomer philosophy of it's a buzzword, it doesn't really work. And then you have another opposing view that we're heading to AGI, all jobs will be automated. It feels like both you and I are somewhere in the middle. General Catalyst was very early to this AI-enabled services space, and we, over 2 years ago, mapped out the industries. We've placed bets in 8 or 9 of those industries already. Pretty much in each industry, we look at 50-plus teams, sometimes 70, 80 teams, and we're really thoughtful because we're thesis-driven on who we want to back.
General Catalyst, I think, has tended to pioneer a lot of different kind of strategies. I think now everybody talks about AI transformation and kind of how do you change these professional services, kind of constantly trying to push the boundaries and find new ways to deploy a lot of capital, because I think their LPs have been very trustworthy in you all for the returns that you've gave them. And so finding new ways to deploy large amounts of capital is been really creative.
How have you guys been thinking through your starting point? So, you start with a small team, you of course have all the resources you need. What's kind of the first product you build, and what's the overall platform going to end up looking like for an accounting firm?
We started with individual taxes. The thesis has always been around building a platform. So for us, it wasn't a matter of like, do we do A or B or C? We will end up building all of those because we believe in that thesis very, very strongly. We started with individual taxes because we felt that is the best path to go really deep on the domain as quickly as possible across a large number of customers. Every firm will do taxes. Not every firm will do audits. Every firm will have individuals that they have to do taxes for. In many cases, for these large firms, that's not their bread and butter. They do them in order to do kind of their business returns. And so it is a good opportunity for them to get massive efficiency, and they're looking for that much more so than in other parts of the stack. Individual taxes, I think, allowed us to go really deep on the kind of accounting domain and the tax domain to see not just how good of a demo we can build, because demos are relatively easy to build nowadays with AI, but how much can we actually go into the workflow and actually spend time on a domain to build a production level kind of service with the right level of reliability and accuracy in all these use cases with very, very complex customers that they have and large number of documents versus, just, I've done a demo that I can ingest a document and now that works. When we were first looking at what we want to build, Sid and I had the perspective that a lot of the incumbent companies that have been in various industries are going to basically adopt AI and integrate AI into their product in some capacity, because it is both the buzzword of kind of the past few years and the next few years. But it is also not that hard to integrate some AI on the periphery into your product. The way we're building Accrual today has a massive advantage for starting in the last 18 months versus starting even 3 years ago. Some of the things not only that we're capable of doing today were not possible before, but also that we have very different ways of doing things much more efficiently.
And there seems to be two schools of thought in AI. One is kind of the doomer philosophy of it's a buzzword, it doesn't really work. Look at the MIT study, or this is just kind of Silicon Valley's next hot trend, but where do I see it in life? And then you have another opposing view that seems the exact opposite, that we're heading to AGI, all jobs will be automated, all work will be AI. It feels like both you and I are somewhere in the middle, where the reality is that certain tasks will be done by people, certain will be done by agents. This will be a productivity boost and gain for the overall economy. Kind of maybe defend that middle position, because it feels like the lonely middle. What have you seen to give you conviction that it is the right worldview, though?
Philosophically, the way I think about these problems is, one, generally extreme views tend to be more often incorrect than not. Things are more in the middle and gray areas than black and white. Number two, it's really useful to look at who has a message and what their incentives are. Like, of course, the lab companies and NVIDIA and others are going to tell you that AGI is around the corner because they will need to sell a product. My observation has been AI has done two things remarkably well. Number one, it has allowed people who are specialized at doing X
Mm.
to do significantly more things that they previously were not doing before.
Mm.
We have folks on our team that are building tools, even fixing bugs. So they're not going to architect the system. They're not software engineers, but they're able to do technical things that they previously could not even dream of. I think that is extraordinary. And I hope more and more people end up using these tools to create things that previously they just didn't have the kind of knowledge to do. The second is experienced and exceptional people
Mm.
are unbelievably more productive. Before we had the saying around the 10x engineer,
Right.
that 10x engineer is now like a 500x engineer. It is unbelievable what people that know how to use these tools and were really good before can do nowadays in terms of productivity.
We've been really surprised because we knew going in, you and Sid were going to be these amazing technical founders that could build really quickly. I think what surprised us has been two things. One is the commercial traction and how good you've been at getting these really large enterprise partnerships that anyone would recognize, these household brands or the largest accounting firms. And that's been really impressive. And secondly, just the mission behind it of really helping these accountants who are overworked, understaffed, giving them the tools to really be able to succeed at their job and delight their end clients and become a real revenue partner for them.
Yeah, I mean, at this stage, the reason why Sid and I are still going at it is to kind of have this level of impact that we've been able to have otherwise. What's the point in life? I think what AI native startups are getting right is that they are able to find a lot of low hanging fruit that has massive impact really, really quickly. If you look at kind of startups in this space, they all grow actually pretty fast commercially if they have a decent product because there's such a good opportunity in a space that's been starving for technology solutions. I think what they get wrong more often than not is that most of these startups to me still feel like point solutions and features rather than an entire product. And I think over time that will end up not compounding the way they think it will. Efficiency is very leaky if you don't kind of like have a large surface area. And I think being able to be really sticky in the long run for these firms requires you to accept the level of depth in each domain that I don't know that a lot of these companies are doing.
I agree with that. I think a lot of startups look at their specific problem rather than the overall company's AI transformation.
Yeah.
So if you're a large Fortune 100 company or a big publicly traded firm, your AI transformation is the data pipes, it's the ERP, it's the software around that, it's all the people and systems, it's the customer support and end product. And so this AI transformation for the CEOs of these companies is very holistic. And most startups are coming in saying, hey, we can solve this one problem, but not necessarily seeing how it fits in the whole picture. And so at GC, we've been very supportive of folks like you guys who want to go in and transform the entire accounting firm, whether that means giving them software for each parts of their stack and for their data, or even if it means buying a business and transforming it soup to nuts using AI. We really think these larger, more holistic projects are the ones that will have this long-term terminal value.
I think if you look at it from a decade plus kind of trajectory, we're so early. I think even the impact that you've seen with some of these technologies is literally in the last 12 to 18 months, which is nothing. And 98% of the industry hasn't really even been touched kind of across the board in all professional services.
And as you're looking at the AI space, obviously software has gone from a really good word with high multiples in the public market to almost a bad word and a drawdown of 30-40% on the index, 80-90% on certain software companies. Yet here we are sitting in 2026 and you're starting a software company. What's kind of your view on that? And is an AI native software sort of play like yours different than how we should think about traditional software or incumbent software companies?
Most people, like end clients in any product, don't really care
Mm.
how you solve a problem. They don't care if you're solving it with AI or not AI. They care about who's solving the problem the best. I think a lot of the existing SaaS companies suffer from the fact that they have built for many, many years without kind of an AI native world, without thinking about agents, without thinking about the new paradigms and user interfaces. And so they're struggling to keep up and it's hard for them to defend when the kind of the underlying ground shifts
Mm.
so drastically. And I think that's what's really hard in this space. Like there are new models literally every month, and there are intricate details about each of them and when they're better, when they're not, what has changed, how do you evaluate those things, and how to integrate it in the product. Not from a I'm going to put a ChatGPT or an MCP on top of my existing product, but really going deeply and doing things that, again, significantly different than what was possible before. And I think this is where these SaaS businesses are kind of being hit because investors, since this is an investment thesis, don't believe that they're able to change themselves as quickly as the market is likely changing.
Tech is changing quickly, the opportunity is changing. And how do you view the labs? Obviously, Anthropic and OpenAI have really strong coding products today. Do you worry that they'll have accounting products in the future? Are they a boon to your business or even a competitor or threat one day?
I try not to worry about things that I can't control, but more seriously, I think it is very likely that AI labs will end up investing in more areas over time because they're business opportunities. The two things that I think are going to be interesting is one, we're already seeing a shift between the different areas of focus. So OpenAI was more of a we're going to build a bunch of consumer products. And now, because of a threat of Anthropic, they're like, oh, we need to shift on developers and enterprises much more so. And like
Right.
yesterday, Sora basically got like shut
Right.
down. And I think you're going to see more kind of de-investments and shifts based on what the traction of competitors is. Number two is the opportunity has to be significant enough for them to make a significant investment. Meaning, if it is relatively easy for them to have a set of skills that are specialized in a given area that people could use to kind of replace what today exists as ChatGPT wrappers, I think they will do it. I think for them to actually build complex workflows that go really deep and understanding each of these domains, I think that is very, very expensive and unclear to me that that's what the ROI is if they're going for AGI and how do we kind of have breakthroughs in research models.
So we're obviously seeing with the models, the underlying technology getting better and better. Why can't companies just go and get a product from OpenAI or Anthropic and build around that? Where's the defensibility around why they would need Accrual?
Products that have mode generally go really deep in serving a customer need. If you take a basic historical product like an operating system, you do everything on that operating system. Very, very hard to just go replace. You've built a bunch of like an entire ecosystem and set of tools and habits, et cetera, et cetera. I think the same is true for what we're building. We're building an operating system for accounting firms. Today, we're seeing that if you're on accrual, if a firm is on accrual, those accountants are spending most of their day in accrual. That is extremely powerful and also extremely complex. It is very hard, I think, and requires a lot of work to actually go and build that. And so to the extent that these lab companies could do that across tens or hundreds of industries, like maybe that ends up being a threat. Just it's not what we've seen in previous kind of set of companies like Microsoft or Google or Amazon.
Absolutely. Thanks for letting us be part of this journey. The fast pace on technology and the commercial side, it's just been awesome to watch you guys work.
Thank you for your support. Couldn't have done it without you.